Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to day 3 of what I have learned from Anthony Robbins. What a magnificent start to the day. We're all starting from a clean slate, and it's a beautiful, most beautiful Sydney spring morning. There was a full moon last night, and this morning I saw the magnificent full moon setting, and it's just a great way to start our Friday. For those who have been following me, I have a YouTube channel named Jim's 5am Club, where I've got over 1,600 videos, vlogs of book summaries, of life experiences, and an inventory of tools that we can all use to grow and develop. The project that I've undertaken just recently is what I want to do is I want to put together a video series of all the wonderful things that I've learnt from Anthony Robbins. Given that I attended UPW back in the mid-90s, I went to 2 UPWs, one with my workmates and one with my wife Paula. And just recently, 3 weeks ago, I was at the UPW 23 here in Sydney with my eldest daughter. I took the place of my youngest daughter, who couldn't make it because she had a more important thing to do at her phase of her life. She'd given birth to a first child after 5 heartbreaking miscarriages over the years. So I've read Anthony Robbins, both of his original books, Awakened the Giant Within and Unlimited Power. I've listened to all of his tapes back in the 90s, most of his interviews, if not all of his interviews, and I've done it over and over again. Not only did I read his books, but I studied his books. I took his books and I annotated them and I underlined them and I thought about them and I read them over and over again. And since then, I've continued the love of reading, having read many books and many book summaries and delivered, as I said before, over 1,600 videos on my YouTube channel. And I've also been to other seminars. I've been to the Jim Rohn seminar. I've been to the Steve Covey seminar, which was held over there at the Opera House back in the 90s. It was the first seminar I ever went to. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I remember how impressed I was to be in the presence of some of the fathers of modern day positive speaking and peak performance coaching. So what I'd like to do today is just continue along the tradition of Jim's 5am Club, and to pick out some more morsels of those wonderful lessons that Anthony Robbins has been able to share with his many audiences throughout the world. So where do we start? Just bear with me here. I guess we talked yesterday in video 2 about the importance of energy and the fact that we need to continually push ourselves, to cajole ourselves, to encourage ourselves to grow and develop, because Anthony Robbins did mention to us at the UPW that fulfillment comes when you're growing and developing and you're fulfilling your calling or callings. as we've mentioned before, we're all born different from each other, but we're born different for each other. Now we're given skills, gifts, charismata, traits, character. All of those things we develop over time through our experiences, and our calling is to try and use those to benefit others, to help others, to show our love for others as we love ourselves, as well as serving God with all our heart, mind and soul. But Anthony Robbins says you just can't grow by just sitting there and waiting for growth to happen. Fair enough, life will throw things at you, will throw curved balls at you, will do things to you that will force you to act and to do things. But that'll happen rarely and infrequently. What we need, and as Anthony Robbins talks about, is we need self-directed growth and development, where we choose how to go about altering our path by taking on OPE, other people's experiences, and using those things to solve the problems at hand, to build patterns, and to enable us to be better positioned to make the most of the opportunities that come in our future, as well as the challenges and problems that we will need to deal with and to solve throughout the years. So growth comes from challenge. You need to be uncomfortable. You need to be pushed outside your comfort zone in order to expand, in order to grow and to develop. Just like a balloon, you need to blow air into the balloon so it can expand, and you blow the air and get it to expand to its limit. Then you let the air out, and guess what? The next time you blow air into the balloon, it's able to expand a little bit more and a little bit more without bursting, without breaking. And we humans are very, very similar to those balloons. You know, what seems impossible, what seems difficult, what seems really hard in the beginning, the next time you try it, it gets easier and easier, and you're able to do it with less discomfort because you've become conditioned, you've become accustomed to it. You know what to expect, and you don't fear it because you've done it before. So growth comes from challenge, and Anthony Robbins mentions, and I love this, that our spiritual and our emotional muscles are the most powerful muscles of all, and we need to take charge of those muscles. We need to understand them, we need to embrace them, appreciate them, and make the most of them. Because he also goes on to say that although the spiritual and emotional muscles are the most powerful, movement and thought are the key to influencing our energy. And we become what we focus on. What you focus on becomes you. And I remember back in the mid-90s, a friend of mine, Bill Maywis, said something to me once, and it was just a passing comment, but it was so profound that it stuck with me. And he said that you are what you focus on. You are what you obsess on. You are what you continually think about. So given that, and given what Anthony Robbins says here, that you become what you focus on, it's important to understand that our thoughts, our priming, all of those things that we ruminate over, the stories we tell ourselves, are so powerful, because not only does it influence who we are, or who we see we are, it also tells the world who we are and shows the world who we are, and it becomes our reality, because we all have in our lifetimes a different past, a different present, and a different future. We're all going to have different experiences, and each of those experiences are going to express and be slithers, just slithers of our reality, and how we interpret those slithers, how we piece them together, the stories that we make up about those slithers are going to have a dramatic and massive impact on how we generate, develop, maintain and express our worldview. So we need to be on guard, and we need to make sure that we are making the right decisions, we are making the right interpretations on what those slithers mean, because not all those slithers of reality, not all those things that happen in our life have the same weighting. So we need to make sure that we colour, that we accentuate and punctuate our stories with the right weighting, so that we don't get weighed down with negativities, and we make sure that the important things, the key things in our life, are the ones that we focus on intently. And the other thing that Anthony assured us at the seminar is that you can change your life, you can change your past, your present and your future. All you have to do is change the way you think about it, and to understand that it's not new, it's only just new to us. And we have the power, each and every person has the power to reinterpret, to reevaluate and to re-weight the things that have happened to them and the things that are happening to them in their life, to put them into perspective and not to allow life to dictate the perspective, but for each and every person to have a purposeful weighting and to be able to decide how they're going to weight the things so that they get the best possible chance of enjoying their lives without being overwhelmed with things that are not worth worrying about. Tony Robbins tells us time and time again, people tend to major on minors. They focus too much on things that are not all that important, not empowering, not useful. So we have to remind ourselves, we need to kick ourselves up the backside from time to time to get ourselves to focus on the things that are going to get us to where we want to be and where we need to be. And all of those things, as we mentioned, are key to our worldview. Tony Robbins also mentions, and I like this a lot, that competition, the word competition, is to conspire with somebody, not to conspire against them, to conspire with them. And that competition brings out the best in us. So the key point, the key call to action from Tony Robbins is to make sure that you compete in your life, you live big, you conspire with people to bring out the best in each other. This weekend is the grand final weekend. In Sydney we have the NRL grand final between the Panthers and the Broncos, and in Melbourne tomorrow we have the AFL final with Brisbane playing, I think, Collingwood. So those two teams will fight it out to see who wins the trophy and which team gets all the glory. But the important thing to understand is that these teams have been playing all year against each other and other teams, and the teams have been conspiring with each other to bring out the best in each other. You know, you can go to train and play with your mates, but it's only in competition. It's only in competition like grand finals, World Cups, State of Origin, and those sorts of competitions that you get the best example of that particular sport, and where people bring out the best in their human nature. So competition is important, and guess what? You can conspire with others to bring out the best in each other, but you can also conspire against yourself or with yourself to bring out the best in your life. Because at the end of the day, the person that you spend the most time with in your life will be yourself and God. So you've got yourself to benchmark yourself against, to compare and contrast yourself against, to try and achieve the best PBs you can, and be the personal best you can possibly be. And you can also compare yourself and benchmark yourself to others. So competition allows you to benchmark yourself to your peers, to those who you have as your peers. And once again, I remember years ago where Jim Rohn and Steve Covey always used to say that you end up being the average, the weighted average, the mean average of the people, the half dozen people that you spend most time with. So as once again we learnt at the UPW, friends and family are great. You know, they're great to comfort us, they're great to support us, but friends and family, sadly, aren't the people who are going to push you, cajole you, pull you, and bend and stretch you in order to grow and develop and become the best sort of version of yourself, especially in today's society where tiger parenting is frowned upon, and it's all about children's rights and just allowing children to grow up and be children without having an input in their life, a guided input to raise their standards. A key message that Tony Robbins always says is that you need people in your life to help you raise your standards, to get you to operate at another level, a better level, a higher level, a level where you're growing and developing. Because the opposite of growing and developing is obvious. It's dying and decaying. And we learnt time and time again that today's 8s are going to be tomorrow's 6s. So we all need to continue to do things incrementally. We're not talking about step function. We just need to do things in an incremental way, step by step, day by day, moment by moment, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. We need to try our best at leaning just outside our comfort zone and to try and do things, to maintain things, and also to push the envelope and to grow things and to move things forward. Because we need to influence others, to hold them to a higher standard, and we also need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. But how do you do that? Tony Robbins said that to influence someone, to influence yourself, to influence your children, your partner, your parents, your work peers, your community, to influence anybody. And this is where the marketing people know this back to front. To influence someone, you need to know what influences them. You need to know their thumb screws. You need to know the buttons. You need to know their triggers. You need to know what excites them, what energizes them, what captures their attention and their imagination, and just do that and anchor it to something that you want them to consider and to do. And this is where Anthony moves on to talk about state, because we need to be in a certain state in order to optimize a situation and to optimize a life. Because we are in state moment by moment, and sometimes our emotions override how we should be. Sometimes the way we feel influences the way we are. And what Anthony Robbins says is you can break that pattern, break that cycle, and at any point in time, put yourself in a powerful state or put yourself in a beautiful state. So you need to manage your state and not to be victim of other people's influence or negative influence. You know, have you ever been to a party or have you ever been to a meeting where you can just feel the atmosphere? You could feel the state being negative, disempowering, boring, tired, weak. All of that is got to do with how people see themselves, how they conduct themselves, their biochemical and biophysical relationship with each other. So we need to understand and appreciate that state, our state, has a massive impact on how we feel and how we influence ourselves, how we respond to the world around us. Anthony Robbins also goes on to talk about the importance of having a blueprint and a model of the world. As we mentioned before, we have slithers of reality that we pick up. We have a worldview that we either develop ourselves through trial and error along our lives, or we inherit from other people. We can inherit it from our parents, our grandparents, uncles, aunts, friends, family, school friends, work peers, the media, our religion, the sports that we play, the things that we read, the YouTube channels that we listen to, the things that we focus on, the things that we obsess on. And the blueprint and model of the world is basically the lens that we use to evaluate things, to interpret things through. And it's the basis of the thing called our belief system. And a belief system can be a BS, a belief system, or it can be a BS, as Anthony Robbins, just bullshit. So we need to evaluate, we need to consider, we need to calibrate our belief systems, our expectations, and our worldview to see if those things, if those belief systems, if our model, if our blueprint is relevant, if it serves us, if it's going to make us better, if it's going to help us grow and develop. Because some of the rules that we have in our belief systems, some of the fears, some of the uncertainties, some of the doubts, some of the stories, some of the narratives, some of the perceptions are out of date. Some are wrong and they need to be updated, they need to be changed. We need a software update, we need a belief system update to make us more contemporary. And I'm not saying change things that are not broken, because some things serve us. As my dear mother told me, she says, son, what we want you to do is we want you to carry on the things that have been handed to you and the things that were handed to us by our parents and grandparents, and to, by all means, complement and supplement those things with other things, but do not swap them out, because they've been handed to us with love by people who love and respect us and want the best for us. There are rules, there are customs, there are traditions that have been time tested in the blast furnace of life, given that the previous generations had just as many challenges, if not more challenges, than what we have. My parents came to this country as migrants back in the mid-50s with nothing. They had no language, no money, no education, and no family, no friends. They came on their own with their small family or parts of their family, but many came without anybody. They took a leap of faith, not knowing where they're going and how long they're going to be there for. My father always tells me he came to Australia, and my mother said the same thing, expecting to stay here for 5 years, to make some money and to go back home to be with his father, his mother, his sister, his brother, and the rest of his clan. But it took him 35 years to go back to Greece. 35 years. And my mother was the same. They worked 7 days a week to make a better life for me, an only child. They couldn't have any other children, but they focused all of their efforts on me and on themselves and their community. But for them, this was their new world, this was their new life, and they did the best that they could. And with them came a blueprint, a model of the world, which was dramatically different. You know, being in Greece in the mid-50s, following World War II and a civil war and economic catastrophe, was completely different to where Australia was back in the mid-50s. Australia was experiencing boom times. I remember my mother saying that when she got off the ship, she was going home with her father and family, and they drove past a pub over there at Woolloomooloo, and she remembers seeing women standing there barefooted drinking beer, and she was wondering where the hell she was. You know, just the freedom, the difference in the focus, a changed perspective, a different country, a different life. And they had to learn to fit in. They had to somehow modify and adjust their worldview, their model, their blueprint to be able to accommodate this new way of life and to make the most of the opportunities that came their way. So as we say, some of the rules that we have are outdated, some of the beliefs are outdated, some of the things that we worry about are outdated, and humans over time have changed, grow and develop, and we need to move with the times where it suits us. And to understand, just because you believe something doesn't make it true. Just because you have a fear, just because you've inherited somebody else's fear, doesn't make it true. Because we all have different fates. Just because it didn't work for your mother and father doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you. And vice versa, just because it worked for your parents, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your aunt, your grandparents, your schoolmates, your work peers, the footy stars, just because it works for them doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. We all have a different life. We all have a different present and a different future, and we all have a different fate. It may work for you, it may not work for you, but one thing for sure and for certain is that God wants each and every one of us to test our fate, to do things that are God-pleasing, and to do it over and over again, and to, by all means, have goals, have dreams, but as long as those goals and dreams include loving God with all your heart and mind, and loving one another as you love yourself, then you need to just continue to do what you want to do, changing your approach from time to time. And then if you see after a while, after you've tried different things and different approaches, if still you're not successful, then maybe it's God's will for you not to do it. Maybe it's not something that's going to be productive and good for your soul. So sometimes we just need to cut our losses and move on, and then to understand that that's life. It's not going to be the same for everybody, but each person has their calling and callings, And what we need to do is to try and identify what that calling is and to do it to the best of our ability. Anthony Robbins then moves on to talk about emotion. And he said, emotion is the word that basically means doing things with energy. Energy and motion becomes emotion. And we need to manage our emotions. We need to manage our logic and our rationality as well. We need to try and live a directed life where we try and do things in a way, in a predictable way that's going to match our patterns and help us leverage our patterns. And we need to be, I guess, bold in our approach as well, is what Anthony Robbins says. He invites us to play big and not to play small, because he says time and time again that massive action equals massive results. Massive action could also mean massive negative results. But guess what? If you give it 100% and you see it's not working for you, then you change your approach and you give it another 100% with a different approach. And if it's not working, you do another approach. No, you'll soon find out if you're on track or off track. But if you're doing it in a timid way, you're only making very, very, very small steps, and you'll never know if you're basically making progress, because you just won't have the momentum. And Anthony Robbins says that Australia, just like America, we do have an element of tall poppy syndrome, but we need to be careful not to impose that tall poppy syndrome on ourselves. By all means, be humble. By all means, be measured. But you need to be a tiger. You need to go after things with 100%. You need to go after things with full commitment, all steam, all steam full ahead. And to understand that age is not a number. This is another important point. Age is an energy level, and we associate old age with low energy. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can be just as energetic at 70 as what some people are at 20. It's just a decision. It's just a small change that you need to make in your physiology, in your breath, in your movement, in your body language, in your thought processes, to be as young as what you feel. And you don't need, this is another good point, you don't need a good reason to feel good. You can feel good at any point in time. You can change in an instant. You can change in a heartbeat, is one of the catch cries that Anthony Robbins tells us. And we need to take control of our survival brain. Apparently, from a scientific perspective, we've got different parts of the brain. We've got a reptilian part of the brain, and we've got a more advanced part of the brain. The survival brain that we talk about is the brain that we had earlier in time, and its primary role and function was to enable us to survive, to be able to survive an attack from a saber-toothed tiger, to enable us to survive an attack from another village or from another tribe. And hence we're always on guard, knowing that whatever happened, wherever we went, we needed to be at our wits, I guess is one way of putting it. But guess what? We don't live in that world anymore. We live in a modern, civilized society. By all means, there are thugs, there are bullies, There are people who are going to cause us grief along the way, but it's not, and it's no way near as bad as what it would have been like 10,000, 20,000 years ago. And the other key message that Anthony Robbins reminds us of is that our fears, our uncertainties and our doubts are just a figment of our imagination. They say that 85% or 90 or 95 or 99% of all the things that you ruminate over, the stories that you tell yourself, are false, are bullshit. Most of your belief systems have not been challenged. They're not real, they're not true for you. They may be somebody else's, but they don't relate, they're not relevant to you. So what we shouldn't be doing is taking on and loading up our lives with other people's triggers, with other people's fears, with other people's uncertainties and doubts. We need to live our life as if we don't have those barriers, and we'll just see along the way what happens, because whatever happens in our lives, whatever happens in your life, whatever happens in my life, we'll figure it out. Marie Forleo says, and Anthony Robbins says this time and time again, just keep on going, just keep on doing it. Just live life as if it matters to you, and you'll figure out along the way what you're doing and how to get there and how to change and get the best outcome. And if you can't do it, then you can get somebody else to help you do it. But people always love helping people who know where they're going. But if you're just drifting and you've got a low energy level, then nobody's going to want to befriend you, nobody's going to want to hang out with you, because your low energy will drain their energy. So we need momentum, and as we know, momentum is power, and stress comes because we've got a low energy state. If you've got a high energy state, then you're not going to be stressed. You're going to repel stress to a certain point because you're confident. You're not spending too much time lingering in the future. You're not spending too much time depressed and lingering in your past. You're spending most of your time, most of your energy, most of your waiting in the here and now. You're being present. So if you change, the big secret from Anthony Robbins, if you change your energy level through motion, then you change your stress levels. Your biochemistry energy is influenced by the way you hold yourself, by the way you breathe, by the movements you make, by the things you do. And I did martial arts many years ago, but I achieved my black belt in martial arts and a black belt in weapons as well. And I learnt back then how powerful you can feel by shouting, by taking deep thrusting breaths, by moving your body vigorously. It just changes the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you live. It becomes a lifestyle that you welcome and enjoy, and it's something that we need to be able to tap into on a daily basis, and to understand that we can lose momentum through it because thoughts get in the way and knock us out of state and cause us to lose that valuable momentum. We need momentum. We need momentum to keep us moving, because as we mentioned in yesterday's vlog, Anthony Robbins says that all roads, all paths have a bump, have a hump in it along the way. It could be a hump, it could be a pothole, it could be a U-turn or a big curve, but you need certain momentum to hit that bump, hit that hump and get over it. Because if you hit the hump without momentum, guess what? You'll either slow down or roll back, and most people give up at that first hump. So we need momentum to get through, over and around any of those humps that we have in the road, and to know that as we move along the path, any path that we choose, we get to see where we're going next, and we can change our approach, and that there is less competition, because the more you push yourself, the more momentum you have, the more humps you get over. You're leaving all your competition in the past, you're leaving them behind. So just keep on going, keep on fighting, keep on conspiring with others to bring out the best in yourself and others, and your life, according to Tony Robbins, will be better. And the last point that I'll harp on today is where Tony Robbins says that the thoughts that you have don't matter, but it's what you hold on to that causes the problem. So we need to shape ourselves, we need to take control of our thought processes, to ask ourselves, is this going to serve me? Is this going to help me? Is this going to hinder me? And to know that what you focus on, you become. What you focus on and you see. And you need to be focusing on the right things, because where your focus goes, your energy flows. And we need to make sure that our energy is being projected, is being focused on the things that we want, the things that are going to help us become the best version of ourselves, and to give us the energy to keep on going, to keep on pushing, to keep on getting over the humps and the hurdles and the barriers that life throws in our way. Anyway, take care everybody. Happy Friday. Wishing everybody all the best, and stick with me, because this journey is going to be a great journey. I just love where it's heading, and Tony Robbins has so much material that he's shared with the world in his books, his seminars, his cassettes and programs, his YouTubes, that we can all grow and develop. One of the key things in my life is to become partners in each other's growth and development, as we said before, to conspire with each other, to bring out the best in each other through competition, where we compete against ourselves, we push ourselves, we cajole ourselves, and we do things to better ourselves where possible, so that we can all benefit. Anyway, take care, wishing you all the best, and it's going to be an absolute cracker of a weekend. I think today's going to hit 36 or so, not quite sure, but this weekend is going to be a beautiful weekend. I'm going to the grand final with my family, and it's going to be interesting to see how Penrith go. Penrith are trying to get a three-peat, 3 grand finals in a row. The last team to do that was my team, the Parramatta Eels. But I was speaking to a footy fan at work. He's an older guy, he's even older than me, but he loves his footy. And he was saying, and we'll see how he goes, he was saying that the Brisbane Broncos are much faster, much quicker, much crisper than Penrith Panthers. And he thinks that the Brisbane Broncos will win the grand final this year. So we'll just wait and see. Take care everybody, all the best, and thank you for joining me on this beautiful journey that we had today. Yassas, bye for now.